guys, welcome back to my channel. So last week we covered PTSD, depression, anxiety, antidepressants, anxiety meds, things like that, my cold, my tea. So today I wanted to talk more about abandonment issues, and I want to say they started when my parents first separated. Well, not the first time. They first separated when I was 12. They actually completely separated when I was about 19. My mom left to Texas completely to live with my brother, and she left my dad. But my dad was a great dad. He's always been a great dad. He just wasn't the best husband, you know? They just didn't mix well together. You know, they weren't the best couple. That's better said. And basically, she just left. She picked up and left, and I stayed living with my dad by myself, and I'm the type of person that when something really rough happens, I go numb, and I don't feel anything, and I just go on with my life. And then people think I'm rock solid, but I'm not. I'm in a lot of pain inside, but I'm numb. I can't feel things. So that's what I'm working on in therapy, actually. When she left, it hurt. I didn't give myself time to feel it. So I dove into school. I dove into working out. I tried to make it work with one of my exes. And then this is where everything in my life changed drastically. So with that ex, I was begging for him to take me back because he's the one that I left for an older man. And I was begging for him to take me back, begging. It put my self-esteem on the floor. I let myself get there. And it was rough. It was, I felt so empowered before. And that whole time I was like, I was begging. I felt like a dog begging. And I never gave myself enough value. I never gave myself enough credit. I never thought that I was worthy. And because of all of that begging, I think that went on for about 3 years. I was begging for him to get back with me. And not only was it humiliating, but it was soul crushing, honestly. And I lost myself because I was trying to please him and please him and please him. And I was trying to be so perfect so that he would take me back, that I lost who Jesse was. And so during that commotion, my ex-husband comes into the picture. And when he comes into the picture, it was like this beautiful relationship. And he came in and started giving me gifts and telling me how beautiful I was and how amazing I was and how much more I deserved. And at the time, he had a girlfriend, and he told me that that relationship was going very badly and that she was crazy, and that he told me a lot of things about that ex-girlfriend that I believed at the time. I no longer feel that way. Just have it out there. Because I'm going to get deep into that relationship possibly next week. So I believed everything that he said, and he made me feel important, and immediately I was able to drop the ex that I was trying to impress so much. So I started giving myself value. I started feeling important. I started feeling great, but my value started going into him, you understand? So fast forward 3 years, we get married, and we get pregnant with my first baby. And when I get pregnant, we start having a lot of issues. When I was 32 weeks pregnant, more or less, we end up moving to a new apartment. And when we moved to the new apartment, all of a sudden, he decides that he's not happy anymore. And he had me for 2 weeks. He told me, you need to prove to me that you love me, and you need to prove that that we're meant to be together. And he got me in that position where I needed to prove myself again. And I was just like, what is going on? I was pregnant. I had the flu at the time. and I was being put in a position where I had to prove myself when I barely had energy for myself. And I was in my nesting period. Like, I was trying to get my nursery ready. I was trying to get everything ready for my baby to come, the most precious time in my life, you know, and everything just, it went to shambles. And in those 2 weeks, the baby shower happened, and I later learned that he was talking to an ex-girlfriend, and he left me for that ex-girlfriend while I was pregnant. And I didn't know till way later, because I even let him be there during the birth of my daughter. So during those 2 weeks, it was so much anxiety and so much, the anxiety I think was the worst part. And it was just him telling me you're not good enough, and the emotional abuse and the verbal abuse was the name calling, the everything. While I was pregnant, I would shake, and when he would come in through the door, I would shake, and I would have to have dinner ready. I would have to have everything perfect. I was trying to have everything clean, everything ready, his clothes washed, his clothes for work ironed, everything just ready. And that anxiety drove me to, I felt like I was gonna have a nervous breakdown, and I stopped eating. I couldn't eat towards the end of my pregnancy. When I would eat, I would throw up. And one day, his mom and my ex-sister, well, I still consider her my sister-in-law, we still get along, but they were in my house helping me organize baby clothes and stuff like that, and he texted me. He said he wasn't coming back, so he took my car. I had no job. We had no food in the fridge, and that same day they cut my light. And I think that was the darkest day of, I mean, I don't know if it was the darkest day of my life, but the darkest day of my adulthood, actually. And he abandoned me completely. I was pregnant, about to give birth. It was insane, and I didn't have the notion that the ex-girlfriend was back in the picture, so I was confused. I was just sitting there like, what? What do you mean you're leaving? What do you mean you're not happy? Like, for me, when I marry someone, it's a vow. I'm gonna stick here through thick and thin. I didn't just marry you to marry you. I married you because I made a commitment. I didn't, that's me. That's what I believe, you know. And for him, he kept throwing in my face, you know, it's just a stupid piece of paper. It's a stupid piece of paper, and I don't know why it's such a big deal to you. And it was constantly, the whole relationship was, I'm gonna get really deep into that later, but because this is about the abandonment issues that I have. Fast forward a few months after the baby was born, 3 months later, he decides to come back and apologizes and says he's really sorry, and he wants to make things work, and he wants to make up for being absent for our daughter, and he wants to make our family work, and he wants to be, a trillion times better. And I said, anybody makes mistakes, let me give him a second chance. Let's see what happens from here. So 18 months later, we decide to have my son. So I get pregnant with my son, and guess what? The same pattern comes around. And that's when I realized, no, this is not okay. This is not normal. Oh, you need to prove to me that you love me, you're not making me happy, and the same pattern happened. So he had just gotten a brand new job, and I already felt it. I felt it, that he had met somebody. Like, I felt it. I was afraid to go into his job. I was afraid to go in and surprise him, and it should never feel that way. It should feel natural. And there was a text from a girl on his phone, and his response to me was, I'm sorry that I laugh. I laugh now because I'm healed from it, but it's incredible when I look back at that situation. And he tells me, no, that's just a friend of mine. And he wasn't one to have girl numbers on his phone or anything. And he's like, that's just a friend of mine from work, and I talked to her to tell her how terrible our marriage is. And I was like, and you didn't think to tell me how terrible our marriage is? So one night he didn't come back till like 4 a.m, and I already knew. It was the same pattern all over again. He told me he needed space, and he kicked me out of my bedroom while we were living with my mother. So we had the master bedroom with our daughter, and he kicked me and my daughter out of our master bedroom. And he was living the life, playing Xbox, talking to whoever he wanted to talk to. and going in and out whenever he pleased. And besides that, a few weeks before that, we had gotten into a heated argument because my first trimester while pregnant with my son, I had a lot of nausea, I felt very, very sick with him. And I couldn't cook, I couldn't even eat, I couldn't deal with myself. So one day he gets home from work and he gets really upset, and he threatened to hit me because I didn't cook. He gets home, he's like, oh, there's no food, this doesn't make any sense. I worked all day, what have you been doing all day? Mind you, I had a little toddler running around, and I was pregnant, and I was also working. So he tells me, oh, there's no food, I can't believe you don't care about me. And he was always playing a victim, and you don't care about me, and this is BS on other terms. And we got into a heated argument, and I remember that day that I'll never forget the look in his in his eyes, that he just like gripped his clothes, because we were fighting in our master closet. He gripped his clothes, and like all his veins were coming out, and he was staring at me, and his eyes were just blank, like they were just. And he stared at me. He said, "Get out of my face before I beat you like a man deserves to be hit." And I just looked at him, and I was in shock. Like I just sat there like, I'm your pregnant wife, and you're telling me this. And when I turned behind me, my daughter was tugging at my pajama pants, and I couldn't believe she was in the room hearing these things. And all of a sudden things were being flung, and it was just one of the worst fights that we had ever had. After that, then he got me in the car. He's like, oh, you see, you're still fighting with me, you still don't care about me, we have to get me something to eat, what's wrong with you? He gets me in the car, we get food, and I'm screaming in the car. I'm losing it because I can't believe the way that he's treating me. I am losing it in the car. And then all of a sudden when we drive back home, he looks at me, and he's like his personality comes back, and he's just all of a sudden looks at me. He goes, you need to calm down, you can lose the baby. And I just looked at him, and I'm like, what am I living? What is this? What am I going through? What is this? This doesn't make any sense. So fast forwarding to the whole girl texting him and this and that, it was just this turmoil, wow, when I think about it, it's like I can't believe I went through all that. And the reason I share the story with you is because if you guys have had similar stories and you feel that this isn't domestic violence, it's emotional abuse, it's verbal abuse, it's domestic violence. Whether people want to downplay it or not, it is. And if you are afraid to get out, you need a support system. You need to get out there. You need to speak. You need to protect your children. I stood there and I was in shock for about maybe 2 weeks. And then after that was when I found out about that girl at work, and I already knew he was cheating. I didn't need to feed into his lies. So one day when he left, he had taken my bank card, which we had just gotten our taxes in. He had taken my bank card, he had taken off the notifications of my phone, and I couldn't get notified every time he took out money. So, and I didn't realize, I'm too trusting apparently. So he was taking out $300 at a time, and I wasn't noticing. And when I noticed, he had left. He's like, oh, I have a life, and I'm gonna go do whatever. So he leaves, and that's the day I decided no more. And I was with my mom, with my sister, and I sat there and I said, with my numb feelings, and I said, no more. I couldn't do it anymore. So I texted him and I said, look, I don't want you to come back here. I'm going to leave your uniforms outside for work. I changed the door lock. I went to Home Depot with my sister, got a new lock, or Lowe's, I don't even remember at this point. We got a new lock. I canceled my card. I did all the steps I needed to do before I notified him. I told him, I don't want you to come back here. So I left him his uniforms outside so that he would have, something to wear to go to work the next day. And basically that was the day that I decided that I couldn't do it anymore. I already knew I was having a boy. I knew I had a little girl, and I looked at my little girl and I said, you know what? I don't want my little girl to grow up thinking that this kind of treatment is okay. I don't want my son to grow up thinking that he can treat a woman this way. It's not okay. And to this day, I am so thankful that I made that decision, because now their father and I get along. And I think we get along better now than we ever did married. And they have a better relationship with him now because they don't see the abuse that went on. And it's a blessing to be where I am, now. So again, the reason I share this with you is if you're experiencing anything like this, I was blessed to have a support system, and I know that there's many of you that are alone out there and have no family, and maybe your abuser has done that to you. Maybe your abuser has pulled you away from your family and friends. Try to seek those people slowly. Text them, reach out to them, little by little. Try to build your support system again, and you'll feel so empowered and safe, and you can tell these people the truth, and your real friends, your real family will be there for you, and they will be there to pick you up when you fall. And then as soon as you start rebuilding your life and rebuilding yourself, you can get out of it, and it just gets to the point where all that pain and suffering, and it's so worth getting out of it. It feels great, honestly, because I had PTSD from my childhood, and then I had PTSD from my marriage. So it's kind of like a double, it hit me twice in my life. So for some reason it's in my life, and for some reason I could sit here and talk to you guys about it and explain to you guys exactly what it's like. So in my own relationship now, in my present relationship, I have to catch myself, because there will be things, where I'm scared, if he said something in some certain tone, I'm like, I freak out, and I'm like, oh, he's not him, like, relax, So there's things that your past will catch up with your present, and you have to catch yourself. Just catch yourself, just catch yourself, just catch yourself. And I have been so blessed to have the partner that I have today, because he understands, and when I need to cry, he lets me cry. When I need to just let it out, he lets me let it out, and he gets me. And he's gentle, and he's what I prayed for. He's amazing. So again, my story is not to make this about me. It's to relate to you guys and see if maybe you guys have a similar story that you're afraid to come out with. Don't be afraid. There's no reason to be afraid. Sometimes the abusers will attack you with threats and things that become huge in your head, and it's only because they're intimidated by you. Yes, you, the victim. They're intimidated by you, the victim. Why? Because you're the warrior. That's the only reason. They're intimidated by you, and they're afraid of you. That's the only reason that they threaten you. Just have that in your mind, because you're the strong one. You're the one living through this, and you're the one conquering through this. So I want you to remember that. The next time that you're threatened and you're put into this little hole, and the next time that you feel afraid and you can't get out, and you feel like this little mouse that has no power, trust me that you have power by your voice, your speaking up, your support system, by just becoming mama bear, or the dad, or if you're a man being abused. It happens also. Once you start believing in yourself, you will know that you can get out there and speak for yourself and speak for your little cubs. Even if you don't have little cubs, you are an individual that deserves to protect yourself, and get out there and speak your truth and speak your story, and stop letting people abuse you. Stop letting people get in your head. Stop letting people tell you who you are. Just know that. Stop it. Because you're special. I hope you can get my message through. My daughter's screaming in the background, and I'm sorry for that, but I want you to know that you are strong, and you are powerful, and your voice is enough, and your support system is enough, and you can speak for yourself, you can speak for your children, you can speak for anybody. Don't be afraid of no court system. Don't be afraid of no law enforcement. Don't be afraid of no ex. Don't be afraid of no person that you're you're dating or dealing with right now. So if a person like me that felt victimized for so long, since she was 8 years old, was able to speak up, I want you to know that you can speak up too. You can defend yourself. A support system is very important, but let's say you can't get a support system, get out there and speak, and you will build a support system. You will see that you will build a support system. A lot of us support each other. A lot of us have been through the same things, support each other, and I promise you that. So stop being afraid, stop letting yourself get abused, and get out there and speak before things get worse, before your life is in danger. And that is my message to you guys. So please join me next week as I will continue talking about a little bit more about marital issues and divorce. So just follow me next week. We'll continue talking about this a little bit more, and then we'll start transitioning into a few other topics that I want to get into during the Heal Talk. So please do yourself the favor and do me the favor. Please get out there and speak. Okay? You're strong and you're courageous and you're brave and you got this. So believe in yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, I got this. And nobody's going to scare you out of your skin. Okay? So that's my message. Thank you. You are strong. You are strong.